Welcome to Community Focus, a public outreach radio program brought to you by Forever Broadcasting. If you'd like to be on our program, call us at 724-654-5502, extension 2722. And now, this morning's Community Focus.
Good morning and welcome to Community Focus. With me this week, I'm talking with Kevin Boozel, who is the Regional Project Manager for 211 Southwest. Kevin, thank you so much for being here this morning.
It's my pleasure, Erika. I'm glad to be here.
Now, the most simple question that I'm going to ask you to get started is, what is 211? Give me a little bit of the history.
Well, it's not as simple of a question as what you'd think. It's a simple number to remember, obviously, 211. And it is a phone number. It is not a place or anywhere that you need to go to. But 211 is a Public Utility Commission authorized phone number that was given to the United Way to provide information and referral on any given day. And unique to this area is that it is a 24-hour, 7 days a week information referral line that's available for anyone in your area. Anyone that's in this listening area can access this.
And is 211 pretty new? How long have you been around?
211 has been around in Pennsylvania just a little over 2 years. Okay. And it's been around in the United States approximately 13 years. And the United Way of Pennsylvania and each of the United Ways are sponsoring it. So we call it Powered by United Way. And so some of the things that we do through 211 or some of the types of calls that we get may be child care related issues, or maybe I have a senior parent, or maybe there's a food issue, or somebody's struggling with newly unemployed and are searching services that they've never reached out to before in the past. And you know, and I say the olden days, that's what my kids call it. When in the olden days you would go to the unemployment office and receive services, those no longer exist. So how do people that have never had to deal with this, how do they get connected to that service? And that's a lot of what we do, is direct people to the already existing services. 211 does not provide new money or new projects or new programs. It basically takes what you have in your community, puts it into a single database that makes it available to anybody. And that's the other thing. It is available online and also by calling 211.
Okay. 211 then, simple as that. It's just like 911, but non-emergency, correct?
That is right. And, and I like the fact that you said it is non-emergency. 911, the way I explain it, or an easy way to understand it, is if you're literally screaming for help, it's a 911 call. If you're calmly asking for something, it's a 211 call.
Okay. Now, why don't you just walk me through that then? If we have listeners who are saying, hey, this sounds like something that I could benefit from.
Okay. It's a very simple number. Literally, it's 211, and it's a quick and effective way to connect people to what's needed. So what you will hear is it'll come on the line, and it'll tell you, welcome to 211. Please press 2 to get connected to a resource navigator. Mm-hmm. That is actually the person who will pick up the phone. And so when they answer the phone, what you need to know is really what you need. That's it. You don't have to know what agency you're looking for. You don't have to know what programs or services are available. The only thing that they'll ask you right off the bat is, hello, thank you for calling 211. How may I help you? And that's your cue to start talking about anything that you're calling about. So your primary need, or whether it be, as I said before, food, or maybe you have an elderly parent and you don't know where to turn. There are 800 numbers out there. There's state 800 numbers. There's local 1-800 numbers. There's a ton of 1-800 numbers out there, but nobody knows what they are without really digging and searching for those. And again, this is about connecting people quickly to what resources are available. So the other part is, the other interesting thing about 211 is that when people call 211, it keeps them from having to call 7 or 10 different places to find that service. The efficiency is much greater, so that person that is struggling with whatever the need is doesn't have to tell 10 people what the need is. Right. They tell one person, and it's what we call targeted referral. So in addition to that, once they get their, let's say they ask for food assistance, okay? As we talk about where they're at and so on, it is a confidential call. They don't have to give their name. The only thing that we do ask for is a zip code and obviously what they need. And the reason we want to know that is because those are statistics that are kept so that we can guide local agencies, local lead agencies, community agencies on how to better spend their dollar and help the community. If we can show that there's a large need for food, or if there's a large need for transportation, or whatever the case may be, we can point that out. I can literally identify it in a week, a month, a year, and give those statistics and show them the the information. It's quantified then for them. So it makes it easier for agencies to make decisions on how to spend those tight dollars, especially as they're being cut back. And so yet that you have to be able to show that there's a need to be able to fund that. So in addition to that, then they'll talk to them, and we typically give 3 separate referrals on a phone call. Our phone call would last between 5 and 7 minutes, normally with the resource navigator, and they'll be talking to them, and they'll ask them, we call it peeling the onion. They'll tell us what they're calling about first, and of course we'll serve them and tell them what's available. But we may also offer up some additional services. If you're calling about food, that may not be the only reason you're calling. That may not be the only need you have. Our resource navigators are highly trained to really talk to somebody, find out what is going on. Is there any other services that would be of interest to you? For example, we have a lot of people that are calling, and you may hear children in the background. Maybe they don't know that there's early intervention services. Maybe they don't know about Head Start or kindergarten starting. One of the large initiatives that 211 was involved with in Mercer County was registering kindergarten students. So we were able to collect up a lot of people that would have missed the registration had they not called through 211, and we did that large advertisement. So we may be connecting the person that called for food. We may be connecting their child to services. And then they may also lead into, well, I've really been struggling with my utility or my rent. And so there may be just services that are available through your utility company that you're not aware of. For example, some of the utility companies have what they call a CAP program, Customer Assistance Program. And it is a budgeting program that helps you stay on track with your utility to make sure it keeps paid every year. There are some income guidelines and things like that, but we know all of those. So as you're talking to us, we find out. So we're not sending you to an agency for a program you're not eligible for. So we're kind of filtering those services with you on the phone. And then, of course, we can do it a couple of different ways. We can just tell you what the information is on how to contact them. We may also, if we get a lot of people that are driving and thinking, what I call them, they're around 4 o'clock, they're leaving work, they're starting to think about home and what they have to do. So they will be calling 211 and they'll be asking for a service. And of course, you don't want them really calling while they're driving, but they do. And you definitely don't want them writing while they're driving. Right. So we do have a service that we can email the referrals directly to them, where they can just open it up and click, and it'll give them all the information about the agency, the services they provide, the eligibility, the times that they're open, so on and so forth. So it's a really nice service that way.
And do you find that that's the case a lot of the time, is somebody's calling for one reason, but then it just leads into an entire chain reaction of other things, like you said, that they might not even know that they could use or benefit from? Absolutely.
And it's about not knowing what to ask for. If you're not sure of how the service system works, and it is very quirky sometimes. It's income eligible, how many people are in your family, so on and so forth. And while we may ask those, we're not trying to be intrusive. We're trying to guide you in the best way that we know. And like I said, the resource navigators are excellent at what they do, and they truly care. They do follow up. We do follow-ups. If people will allow us to, they'll give us their name and their phone number. And our goal is to follow up with at least 7% of the calls that come into our system, call them back and say, did it work out for you?
That's great.
Yeah. So, and then we get a feedback loop of, what we're doing is working and so on and so forth. The other thing that we do to make sure that the quality is up is that we get a hold of the agencies themselves and we talk to them. But we print a report of only the need and the zip code, and we send that off to, and also the referrals that we made for that person. And we send that off to our local lead agency. And each county is a little bit different, but each of our counties in this area, Butler, Lawrence, and Mercer, the United Ways get those reports. And so the United Way director looks over that to make sure that we're doing a good job, and they grade us as to whether or not we're doing a good job in making our referrals. So it only makes us better, stronger, to learn about how we can do better.
So there's possibly listeners right now saying, I've never dealt with a situation like this before. Maybe somebody just lost a job or they lost their insurance, and 211 can really help them with that.
Right. We get a lot of calls. Our primary calls are primary needs, we call it. You have your utility, your food, your housing, but we're getting a lot of calls on medical and how do I get insurance and where do I turn? You hear all of the terminology being thrown around about Affordable Care Act and who does what and how do I apply and am I covered or am I going to lose all my coverage? And we get all of those questions. We have folks in each area that are trained to do that, to help people walk through that system. We don't do that in our 7-minute phone call, but we have places in each of those counties that do sit walk and talk you through what you're asking about.
And I think that's huge right now. Everybody is affected in some way or another by the new healthcare reforms. And it's county by county then, depending on where somebody lives. They call 211 and they're going to be directed to their local agencies.
Absolutely, and you hit a great point when you said that, county by county. In the past, each United Way or a typical service agency may have a list of resources, and they'd print them, and the day they printed, they're obsolete because the numbers change, the agency moves, they no longer do that program, whatever. Whereas now, and it's by county, so if I lived in Mercer County, I would be calling the helpline in Mercer County, but I may get my services from Butler because it's closer for me to go there. And so in the system that we have now, it's a database system that's online. So two things come out of that. One is we can search by your zip code or your address and give you the closest location, and it doesn't matter of county lines. The other thing that we do with that is it's available online for people to look up their own information. If they just go, and I'll give you the website real quick if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
It is www.pa211sw.org, and that stands for Pennsylvania 211 Southwest. And that is the region of Pennsylvania that Mercer falls in our region. So we have 11 counties. And so we have 11 counties worth of data, and there's well over 7,000, nearly 8,000 services listed in there for those for that entire region. So that's a lot of service.
That absolutely is. Well, then, Kevin, tell me a little bit about how that data is collected from each individual agency.
And again, it's been a tough road to get all the information because there's so many services. But as we learn about new services, sometimes how we learn about them is we get a caller with a need and we don't have an answer. And I'll be quite honest with you, we call it an unmet need. So we don't just say, hey, sorry, and hang up. We say, let us work on this a little bit. And so what we do is we escalate it to a quality assurance person in our office. And then that person comes in, picks up, and tries to dig a little deeper in our database. And if they still can't find it, they'll reach out to the community. They'll reach out to the local lead agencies. They'll do some legwork to find that service for you. And once we find a service, we're asking that service to be entered into our database. So our database is a living, breathing thing, and we add to it and take away every day. And so on top of that, each agency, and this is really important for social service agencies that are listening to this, if they want to take over their information, which we encourage them to do because nobody knows your agency like you do. And so if they're interested in doing that, they can go to that same website and click Add Agency, and it will direct them on how to do that. Or if you're an agency that uses our database to find resources and you find that there's one missing, you can also identify that and tell us about that agency, and we will go after that agency information. So we have several ways that we can add information and keep it up to date, but we definitely have to keep it up to date annually. So every piece of information that's in there, we've touched once a year at least.
Okay. So you are not in a position then to tell somebody, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. You're going to do everything you can.
Everything possible, right? And like I said, it's only what's available in your community, and there may be something there. And I'll throw an example out, and I'm not saying any particular county, but some counties really struggle with the transportation issue. And so that transportation issue may affect hundreds of people, but until you have those 100 people identified, then it doesn't really crop to the top of the list of needing met, right? Like needing some service here. So once we gather that unmet need and we can show where the unmet needs are in that county, then they can address them. And so they can make them better. So even if you're calling and we really, really try to find some kind of help, if you're calling for utility assistance and they're closed, they're not open, they're drained, whatever happened to them, then we don't just call it a day. We'll try to find other things that will help supplement your income, maybe a food program, maybe talk to them about child care services that they may be qualified for that they don't know about. Right. So we do try to look at that. You only have two ways to do better in your income and your budget, and that is either to increase your income or decrease your debt. And so we try to decrease the debt somehow by providing whatever is available in your community to you.
Sounds great. If you're just tuning in this morning, I'm talking with Kevin Boozel, the Regional Project Manager of PA 211 Southwest. And 211, Kevin, fairly new. You said, about 2 years now? So how have things been going? Can we talk a little bit about stats? Do you have anything that you can put out there?
Yes, I do have. We look at call volume primarily as far as a tracker as to how busy we are. Obviously, we also look at the website and see how busy it is. However, our primary reach or touch to people is still by the 211 phone number. And so to give you an idea of the number and the increase that we're seeing in 2011 when PA 211 Southwest originally rolled out, we had a total of 26,200 plus calls. Mm-hmm. In the second year of service, which was 2012, we had roughly 31,600 or almost 700 calls. Okay. So you can see the increase going up by about almost 6,000.
Sure.
Last year alone, we could add both the 2 years prior to that, and we've surpassed it. It's almost 60,000 calls.
Wow.
60,000 calls in an 11-county area. We anticipate that we'll probably be, before we peak and kind of level off, we'll probably be between 80 and 100,000 calls per year. And those are all needs-generated calls, mm-hmm. right? So we try to provide as many services, and our services continue to grow. We started with only a few thousand. We keep adding new counties. And so now we have our full 11 complement of counties. From Mercer, we have Fayette, Washington, Greene, Beaver, Butler, Lawrence, Allegheny. Not sure which one. I mean, Indiana. I'm not sure if I missed any in there, but there's 11 counties in the southwest region of Pennsylvania, and they are strongly rolling this out. The nice part about it is we're recognized by each of the county governments as well. So, and the United Ways recognize us, and so they are vested in making this work. Many people put information into a database and they never know what happened to it. Mm-hmm. With ours, we're keeping it up to date. We're requiring some services that are very active to keep theirs up to date. And of course, we have a certification process we're trying to get. It takes about a 3-year time span to be qualified for that. It's called AIR certification, Alliance and Information and Referral Services. It is a hefty challenge to meet their goals, but we're doing everything we can to make it the best service available to the residents here in Mercer and Lawrence and Butler.
And looking at your 2013 stats, Kevin, what are you seeing as some of the biggest needs in the communities?
That's a great question. We talk about our primary needs and people calling for those first. And, of course, housing is our largest, and we're over 20,000 calls in housing alone. Now, housing issues could range from I need a shelter, I need rental assistance, it could be foreclosure prevention, it could be weatherization for a house. It's becoming unaffordable because the house was built in 1800s and there's no insulation. Mm-hmm. And I live there and I'm elderly and I don't have the money to update it. There may be a weatherization program that's available in your area that would be able to come in and help you with that, at least a portion of it, to make it so that it's cheaper to heat. We also look at the second highest need is over 14,000 calls for utilities. And so we see that it's a direct correlation between housing and utilities. And the next one you would obviously think is food. And that is very true. That is a very high need. If you go to our website, those are 3 primary things that you can pick from: housing, utilities, and food, because we try to make that as simple as possible to get to and find information about. But on our statistics, we had over 7,000 calls for taxes and people needing help getting their taxes done. An interesting statistics from one of the counties was they were returning over $13 million back to the IRS as unclaimed in 1 year. One county.
That is a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. And I don't know anybody in a community that would want to see $13 million leave their community.
Unclaimed, absolutely not.
Right. So there are programs out there that will help folks with income eligible, that will help them do their taxes for free. Of course, they're the simple tax forms, right? The easy forms and so on. But each county has its own income eligibility and what types of services. There's one that's known as VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. There's another one that's ran through AARP, some other programs that are out there. So we try to collect all the information and get them to the right places. No matter what the county has to offer, we make sure we know what it is and we can get you that information as soon as possible.
Right. I want to go back to what you were saying about the utility needs in that. Obviously, we know that this has been one of the coldest winters, some of the coldest days in 20 years even, and I can't help but think about folks whose furnaces might break down, right, or their oil tanks are empty, and yes, 211 can help with that type of question as well? We absolutely can. There are a lot of state and federal programs. There's LIHEAP, LIHERP, Crisis, and I'm throwing out acronyms. There's a ton of acronyms out there that I don't even know off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. So how can you expect somebody that has never asked for help to know what this all means, exactly, right? Sure. And so we can guide them through what's available. Dollar Energy in some areas. We also have some special funds, what we call special funds. If there's a foundation or somebody has something specifically for those with
children maybe or something like that, we list as much as we can into our system, and we try to guide them. The idea here, though, is, and I want to make this very clear, is that we don't want to just offer this up as a continuous service, right? It's about, okay, let's mitigate the problem for today, and let's look at the future for tomorrow, so you don't have to come back for that service.
Sure.
And so when we talk about peeling the onion, okay, we may be able to connect you with some utility fuel or oil, but what's really going on in your household that you can't budget that in? What happened, right? Okay. So, and there are elderly people that are trying to stay in their home, and they are paying higher taxes, and they are paying higher heating bills, and they're living on a fixed income. So sometimes you have a tough conversation about maybe this housing isn't right for you, right? Maybe you want to look at something different. Maybe there are programs out there called reverse mortgages for elderly that can help them stay in their home and afford it. But those are all programs, and those are all housing counseling style programs. Not something you're going to hear over the phone with us. That's not the case. But we know about them. We can give you tidbits of information about them. And if you're interested, we can send you to them.
Kevin, I want to talk a little bit about how 211 is funded.
Okay.
I mean, surely you have to have employees, or is it more volunteer driven? Just talk to me a little bit about that.
All right. 211 is funded. Everyone is a paid employee. For the most part, I shouldn't say everyone. We do have a budget. We have our primary source of income is really through the United Ways. When I talk about it being powered by the United Way, they have not only stepped up individually county-wise, but they've put money into the efficiency piece of it. So we're all into one pot of money to provide this service. In addition to that, there's additional funding from other foundations, and for example, Duquesne Light and the Pittsburgh Foundation, UPMC, some of the other larger foundations that have placed money into this, and they're finding a value in what we're doing. They're finding that their residents or their client or their person that they're taking care of medically is receiving a large benefit by using 211. And so they have found it worthwhile to invest in us. Mm-hmm. So while we're keeping the cost as low as possible, because we're doing it on an efficiency scale, it still costs money, right? And so we have to have those dollars coming in from somewhere. So each county pays a little piece, not county agency, not county government. We're talking about the United Ways and fundraising and things like that. And then we do special programs for maybe a utility company that wants us to drive people to their customer assistance program, right? Or maybe it's getting, for example, there's a Duquesne Light did a program where they were giving away for residential customers a efficiency kit, which included the I always call them the squirrely, the light bulbs, right? Yep. And I think they're called CFL light bulbs or something now, but and they had night lights in there, and they had something called a smart strip, which you plug in one major appliance, and when you turn it off, all of the strip goes off, which is it saves money, a lot of money actually. And so they wanted to get those out to their customers, but they couldn't get their customers to call in directly to them because I think that there's a stigma about calling into your utility company, right? Yeah. So why would I call if I owe them money and so on and so forth? So what we would do is we'd play a third party, and we'd take that information and we'd give it over to the utility company, and they'd send out the kits. Okay. But it also gave us an opportunity, because now we have an opportunity to peel the layers back, right? Mm-hmm. And let's talk about your utility and talk about the fact that you owe money and things. And there's a special program at your utility company. Let's talk about that, right? So it opens up new doors, new avenues for people that are just struggling. And again, we come back to the budget. It's either you got to increase income or decrease debt. And so how do we do that? One way is efficiency by using less energy and doing things like that. So it's a holistic approach. There's not one right answer for one family or every family, right? It's not a cookie cutter. It is truly about what's going on with your family, what your values are, and what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And so we don't tell people what they have to do. We just identify what resources are available.
Well, Kevin, you have a big week coming up. We're just into February, and Tuesday is just so happens to be 211.
That's pretty amazing, so
right? Tell me, you got something going on that day?
We do. We have a celebration of 211. It is on to 11, February 11th. We're very creative people here. And we have at the Fairmont Hotel, we're doing basically recognizing the milestones, the fact that we've incorporated all 11 counties and they're fully functional in our 211 system. We are a very strong 211 system across Pennsylvania. We are looked at as a lead in many of the other areas. And so we're celebrating that. We're bringing all the people that supported us along the way. In fact, even the 911 centers in each county, emergency management agencies, have supported the 211 because they know the value of it. They know that they have a resource that they can turn somebody over to if they call 911, and it's really not an emergency, right? So they don't want to just say, hey, sorry, don't call us, we're not an emergency, right? They would go well out of their way and spend time that they should be spending on emergency calls. Now they have a value in 211.
Wow.
And so we want to recognize them for realizing the potential of 211. We have some generous champion awards for people that have donated and foundations and so on. But yes, it is absolutely a great event. I expect that there's going to be hundreds of people there. It's going to be pretty exciting.
And you should be celebrating. I mean, the fact alone that 211 is helping thousands and thousands of people in our communities is something you should be proud of.
Right, and we absolutely are proud of it. I think that there's not a single person that works at 211 that isn't proud of it, and I think that they put their heart and soul into it, along with Each United Way sponsoring us and recognizing the value of doing it together. And this is probably the one system that really plays a large part in each of the communities, each of the United Ways, each of the counties, really looking at how do we deliver services better, not just cheaper, but better. And so by us providing the mechanism through 211, the phone number, the database, all of those things that we do, I really believe that it's brought the communities much closer to a more efficient way of handling all the needs. And everybody has needs. Every county has needs. Absolutely. And it's just a matter of how we're going to manage them.
Kevin, we just have a couple minutes left here. I want to ask you about success stories. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind, one or two, that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example that happened. And I say that we work with the police and the EMAs, the fire departments. When we go out and talk to them about 211, we also talk about how they can use 211 to their advantage. So a police officer that goes out to a house that has maybe a call of domestic violence or something like that, their job is to go in and mitigate, get that issue stopped, right? They're not counselors. They're not going to talk to you about counseling. That's not what they do. Are they heartless? No. They just don't want to go outside the boundaries of their job. And so they talk about, hey, maybe you need counseling or whatever. Now they have a card that they can technically hand over to them, and it has a 211 number on it, and it talks about why you would call. So they're doing those things. And I'll give an example of something that happened. One of the United Way directors in another county, she has a son that is a policeman, and so he works for sheriff's office, but he also works at a Point Park in Pittsburgh. And so as he was working his beat, he came across somebody that was homeless and struggling with the fact that he was using alcohol and was intoxicated at the time. But he also identified himself as a veteran and a struggling veteran. And so rather than cart him off to jail and put him through that legal system and get everything started and fired off, he had the wherewithal to call his mother. She wasn't happy. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, but and it was right when 211 was starting. And so he called her and he said, look, I need to know what can I do? Are there any other options for this? And she said, I have no idea where you're at. In Butler, yes, I can help you, but not here, right? So she said, why don't you try 211? And so he did. And he followed up with this particular person and called the 211 number. They were able to get a hold of the VA Medical Center, the Veterans Administration. They sent somebody over and took him into care rather than to jail. Wow. And so he went into care, and the follow-up to that story is her son still works at Point Park and was able to follow up with this gentleman later, and he now works at the Point Park. And so he has a whole different aspect of life that was given to him without going through the legal system. And that's what it's about.
That is such a great story, and I'm so glad that you shared that. And it's so good to know that 211 can help turn people's lives around. Absolutely, in so many ways, right? It's just endless. And so if you think of something that we don't do, call us. We'll probably end up doing it. And if you are listening right now and you need help, any way, shape, or form, the number is simple. It's 211. That's pick up your phone and call. Kevin, thank you so much for being here this morning. And again, thank you so much for what you do, and lots to celebrate on Tuesday, and we wish you lots of continued success. Thank you very much for having us. We'll be back anytime you need us. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Community Focus, a public service of Forever Broadcasting. If you'd like to be a part of our program, call us at 724-654-5502, extension 2722. And join us again next week at this time, right here on this radio station, for another edition of Community Focus.